There's an absolutely stunning new report from a longtime investigative journalist, Carl Bernstein, about what is going on behind the scenes with Donald Trump. And multiple Trump administration officials believe, number one, that Donald Trump is completely delusional on the basis of a bunch of different phone calls he's had with world leaders. And number two, that Donald Trump's phone calls with world leaders actually represent a security threat. And I'm going to go through some of the allegations. I encourage you to read Carl Bernstein's primary reporting directly because it is really, really important. So, just a few highlights from the report. Multiple sources describe Trump as bullying and belittling allies while fawning over autocratic leaders. No surprise there. Sources say Trump behaved in near sadistic fashion with female leaders, that he talks to Putin as if they're two guys in a steam bath, and that Turkish President Erdogan, quote, took Trump to the cleaners. Trump's behavior was said to be so unusual and erratic that it convinced senior administration officials that the president was, quote, delusional. And this includes officials like National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster, former, of course, almost everybody's former with Trump, former National Security Advisor John Bolton, former Defense Secretary Jim Mattis, former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, former White House Chief of Staff John Kelly, and intelligence officials. They believed that Trump was often delusional, that he was disconnected from reality in terms of what was going on. In some cases, according to Carl Bernstein's report, Trump's actions led White House officials to conclude that the president posed a national security threat. These are the people who are supposed to be the top protectors of the American people from national security threats. Many of them believed that the president himself was the national security threat. Details about phone calls. Trump would get on the phone with other heads of state, including Mohammed bin Salman from Saudi Arabia, including Kim Jong-un, the North Korean dictator. And on the phone with them, Trump would brag about his wealth, about his genius, about his accomplishments, about how bad some former presidents were, the quote, idiocy of former US presidents, according to multiple sources. That sounds delusional to me. That seems like not just delusional, but it seems also weaponized narcissism is maybe a term I would apply. Now, as usual, every time you get one of these reports, including from a very respected investigative journalist like Carl Bernstein, who understands the journalistic process, Watergate reporter along with Bob Woodward, you immediately just get Trump followers who just say it's all lies, it's all fake news. Bernstein did this report, wrote this up, and it was published by CNN. You can't trust that. It's all lies. None of this goes against what we know about Donald Trump. If we got a report that this was something George W. Bush did, I didn't vote for George W. Bush. I think Bush was a terrible president, but it doesn't sound like George W. Bush that he would be bragging about his wealth and business accomplishments, with the Texas Rangers or whatever, or oil money, whatever, when getting on the phone with autocratic leaders. It just wouldn't really match everything else we knew about George W. Bush. Bush was a terrible president, but that's not something he would do. Everything about this report is exactly what we would expect Donald Trump to do based on what we already know about the guy. Not surprisingly, Trump would often attack female allies of the United States who are or were world leaders. British Prime Minister Theresa May, German Chancellor Angela Merkel were regular targets of Trump during phone calls with other leaders. In addition to Merkel and May, number one, Trump would also bully Merkel and May when on the phone with them. But sources also say Trump would regularly bully and disparage other leaders of allies, like, for example, French President Emmanuel Macron, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison. The calls were, quote, so unusual to German officials that German officials did everything they could to cover up the content of these phone calls. This is what happens when you put a reality show guy who's known for firing people on camera in charge of the United States of America. It's just not surprising. There's nothing surprising about this. It's extremely disturbing. It highlights the urgency of removing this malignant narcissist as soon as possible. But, we saw what happened at the Helsinki summit. We saw what happened with multiple North Korea summits. Every single scandal, it all clearly has been pointing in this direction. Who knew, right, that the guy who asked a foreign country to hack his political opponent back in 2016, who could have predicted that he might not be the best guy for national security? So the Trumpists are going to write this off. Who cares? We understand what's going on. We can distinguish between a believable and an unbelievable claim about Donald Trump. All of this falls squarely under the bucket of very, very much believable. And that gets us to our next story, which I want to go into some detail on. If you love feeding your intellectual curiosity, but you're always struggling to find the time, check out one of my all-time favorite apps called Blinkist. Blinkist lets you consume an entire book on your way home from work. They take thousands of popular nonfiction books, condense each one into text or audio that you can get through in just 15 minutes, and you get all of the important core ideas and information from that book. It's perfect if you don't have enough time to do all the reading you want to do, or if you just want to sample a book before you buy the entire thing. I recently read A Brief History of Time, of course, by the great Stephen Hawking. This is a book that I have been aware of for so long, and other things got in the way, and it was fantastic to check it out on Blinkist. Blinkist has books on politics, philosophy, science. They have 27 different nonfiction categories, and a subscription is only about $8 a month, and you get the entire library. But you can try it totally free and get 25% off a subscription when you go to Blinkist.com/Pakman. I've put the link right underneath this video.